23 credits. The hiring clerk stared at Lyra Venn as if she had just insulted his ancestors. "Excuse me? That's everything I have," Lyra said. 23 credits. I need a guard until tomorrow night." The clerk slowly leaned back in his chair. Then he laughed. Not politely. Not quietly. He laughed hard enough that two armored mercenaries standing nearby turned to look. 23 credits won't buy you a guard, he said. 23 credits won't buy you a trained animal. It might buy you half a battery pack for a security drone. Lyra placed both hands on the counter. I don't need the best. That's fortunate. I need someone who can stand beside me during one meeting. What kind of meeting? Lyra hesitated. The clerk noticed. His smile disappeared. What kind of meeting? With Ambassador Valor Rusk. The clerk stared at her. One of the mercenaries behind Lyra quietly walked away. The second suddenly became very interested in the opposite side of the hall. The clerk lowered his voice. You mean Governor Rusk's brother? Yes. The Valor Rusk who controls half the shipping lanes between the Sol Compact and the Threxian frontier? Yes. The same Rusk who made 3 competitors disappear last month? Lyra swallowed. Yes. The clerk pushed her credit chip back across the counter. Go home. I can't. Then write a will. I need a guard. You need a warship. I have 23 credits. And I'm telling you 23 credits buys nothing. Lyra didn't move. The clerk sighed. You're serious? My brother is being held aboard Rusk Station. That changed something in the clerk's expression. Only slightly, but enough. Lyra continued. I have proof that Rusk has been hijacking civilian cargo ships and selling their crews into debt colonies. My brother found the manifests. Rusk knows he copied them. Tomorrow I'm supposed to bring him the only surviving data key. And in exchange? He releases my brother. The clerk stared at her for several seconds. You believe that? No. But at least you're not stupid. I need someone beside me long enough to get my brother out. The clerk rubbed both eyes. All right, let's see what 23 credits buys. He activated the old terminal beside him. Faces appeared in the air. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, former soldiers, corporate enforcers. One after another, their prices flashed beside them. 400 credits. 700. 1,200. 3,000. The clerk scrolled downward and kept scrolling. The faces became less impressive. Older men, injured women, disgraced officers, unlicensed gunmen, drunks, criminals, people whose careers had ended badly. Then he stopped. At the very bottom of the list was a profile with no photograph. Just a name. Kayla Voss. Species, human. Age, 61. Combat rating, unverified. Current certification, provisional. Medical restrictions, multiple. Left shoulder impairment. Spinal damage. Cardiac scarring. Partial hearing loss. No active military record. No current weapons license. Contract price. 20 credits per standard day. The clerk pointed at the hologram. There. Lyra frowned. No picture. He refuses biometric photography. No combat rating? Never completed the assessment. No weapons license? Expired. Then why is he listed as a guard? Because technically the guild hasn't found a reason to remove him. Is he dangerous? The clerk looked at her. He's 61 years old and spent the last 11 months taking warehouse shifts nobody else wanted. Last week he guarded crates of frozen algae. Lyra stared at the profile. Any complaints? None. Any clients injured while under his protection? The clerk paused. No. Any clients killed? Another pause. No. Lyra pushed her chip back across the counter. I'll take him. The clerk blinked. You don't even want to meet him first? I don't have time. You have 3 credits left. That's 3 more than I expected. The clerk shook his head. You're either very brave or very stupid. A rough voice behind Lyra answered. Usually those are the same thing. Lyra turned. The man standing there looked nothing like a legendary warrior. He didn't even look like a particularly successful warehouse guard. Caleb Voss was tall, but age had bent him slightly forward. His dark coat was old enough to have been repaired in several places. Silver hair covered most of his head, cut short without much care. His left arm hung somewhat stiffly at his side, and when he walked closer, Lyra noticed that one of his boots dragged faintly across the floor. He carried no visible weapon. No armor. No tactical implants. Nothing. Only a battered metal thermos in one hand. His face was lined and tired. His eyes were gray. And strangely calm. "You Lyra Venn?" he asked. "Yes." 24-hour contract? Yes. Protection only? Yes. No assassinations? What? No stealing ships? No. No coups? Of course not. Good. He took a drink from the thermos. "I'm trying to avoid complicated work." Lyra glanced at the clerk. The clerk gave her a look that seemed to say, "I warned you." Caleb looked at Lyra again. "Where are we going?" "Rusk Diplomatic Station." For the first time, the old man stopped moving. Only for half a second. But Lyra saw it. "Problem?" she asked. "No. You know the station?" "I know the design." "And Rusk?" Caleb took another drink. "Men like him all use the same design." "That doesn't answer my question." "No." "What doesn't?" "No, it doesn't answer your question." Then Caleb turned and began walking toward the exit. Lyra hurried after him. "That's it." "That's what?" "You're not going to ask how dangerous this is?" "You hired me because it's dangerous." "You're not going to ask who might attack us?" "I assume everyone." "You're not going to inspect my evidence?" "No." "Why?" He stopped, looked at her, and for one brief moment, Lyra felt something she couldn't explain. The noisy hiring hall seemed very far away. Caleb's tired gray eyes suddenly didn't look tired at all. They looked focused, cold, measuring. Then the moment disappeared. "Because if they want the evidence badly enough," he said, "they'll tell me where the danger is." He started walking again. Lyra stood there for a second, then followed. Neither of them noticed the hiring clerk staring at Caleb's back. The clerk had just received an automated notification. The moment Caleb Voss's contract had been registered for Rusk Diplomatic Station, the Guild database had tried to verify his identity through the interstellar security network. The request had been rejected. Not with an error. Not with missing data. With a classification seal. Obsidian priority. The clerk had worked at the mercenary exchange for 19 years. He had never seen an obsidian priority seal. Under it was a single line. Identity restricted by order of Sole Defense Command. The clerk looked toward the exit. Caleb Voss was already gone. Who the hell did she just hire? On the transport to the station, Lyra tried 3 times to explain the situation. 3 times Caleb interrupted her. "Your brother's name?" "Tomas." "Age?" 29. "Military experience?" "None." "Medical problems?" "No." "Does Rusk know you copied the evidence?" "I think so." "Wrong answer." Lyra frowned. "What?" "Either he knows or he doesn't." "He knows." "Good." "How is that good?" "Certainty is useful." Caleb looked out the window. Rusk Diplomatic Station was beginning to appear beyond the transport lane. It was enormous. 3 rotating rings surrounded a central black tower, their outer surfaces covered in golden lights. Rusk's private emblem, a silver wing wrapped around a red star, was visible from kilometers away. Thousands of ships passed through its commercial docks every day. Officially, the station was neutral territory. Unofficially, Valer Rusk owned everything aboard it. Security, customs, communications, police, even the judges. Lyra watched Caleb's reflection in the glass. "Do you want a weapon?" "No. I can probably buy you something cheap with the 3 credits." "No." "Why not?" "Because cheap guns jam." "You're a bodyguard." "Yes." "Without a gun." "Yes." "That doesn't concern you?" "No." "It concerns me." "Then stand behind me if shooting starts." Lyra almost laughed. She wasn't sure whether he was joking. Caleb reached into his coat. For a moment, she thought he might finally produce a weapon. Instead, he removed a small paper-wrapped piece of candy. He unwrapped it, ate it, then offered her another. She stared. What? Sugar. We're flying into a hostage exchange. And? You're eating candy. You haven't eaten since yesterday. Lyra froze. How do you know that? You shake slightly when your blood sugar drops. I'm shaking because I'm terrified. That too. He held the candy out. Eat. She did. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Caleb asked, how many people know you're carrying the data key? Me. Thomas. Rusk. No one else. My friend Nira helped encrypt it. Where is she? Back on Mars. Good. Why? Because if Rusk intends to kill everyone connected to the evidence, distance might buy her time. Lyra's stomach tightened. You really think he'll kill us? Caleb looked at her. I think he decided whether you live or die before he invited you. That's comforting. You didn't hire me to be comforting. The transport docked. 6 armed station officers were waiting. Their captain was a tall Threxian male with blue-black scales and ceremonial silver armor. His nameplate read Kuros. He looked at Lyra, then at Caleb, then back at Lyra. Your escort? Yes. Kuros studied Caleb. A human? Caleb said nothing. Kuros stepped closer. Weapons scan. Caleb lifted his arms. The scanner passed over him. Grinned. No weapons. Kuros gave a mocking click of his jaw. A guard without weapons. Caleb lowered his arms. A station with 6 officers greeting 1 civilian. Kuros' expression hardened. Caleb continued. Looks like we're both nervous. 2 officers shifted their grips on their rifles. Lyra's heart jumped. Kuros stared at Caleb, then smiled. You should teach your servant respect. He's not my servant, Lyra said. Kuros looked amused. No. Caleb leaned slightly toward Lyra. He wants you angry. She glanced at him. What? People make mistakes when they're angry. Kuros' smile vanished. Caleb gave him a tired nod. Lead the way. They were escorted through 3 checkpoints. At each one, Caleb seemed bored. But Lyra began noticing things. His eyes never stopped. Doorways. Ceilings. Camera positions. Emergency hatches. Guard rotations. He glanced at reflective wall panels instead of turning his head. He counted steps without appearing to count. At one junction, he paused for less than a second beside an environmental control vent. At another, he touched a support column with 2 fingers. Lyra whispered, What are you doing? Walking. You keep checking things. I'm old. I get distracted. She didn't believe him. They entered an elevator. Kuros and 4 officers accompanied them. Caleb stood near the rear corner. Lyra beside him. The doors closed. The elevator began rising toward the diplomatic level. Then Caleb quietly said, When the doors open, don't move. Lyra's mouth went dry. Why? Just don't. Kuros looked over. Problem? No, Caleb said. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. A polished white corridor waited beyond. Empty. Silent. Kuros gestured. Move. Lyra started forward. Caleb caught her wrist. Not hard. Just enough. She stopped. Kuros turned. I said move. Caleb looked at the ceiling. Your floor sensor is wrong. Kuros frowned. What? That panel. He pointed toward the corridor. Pressure sensitivity is higher than the surrounding plates. One officer laughed. Caleb bent down, picked up the metal cap from his thermos, and rolled it through the doorway. The cap crossed the first panel. Nothing happened. Second panel. Nothing. The entire corridor erupted. 2 hidden gun ports snapped open in the walls and unleashed a crossing burst of energy fire. The thermos cap vanished in white heat. Lyra screamed and stumbled backward. The guns immediately retracted. Silence returned. Kuros went completely still. Caleb straightened. That would have ruined my day. Lyra looked at Kuros. You were walking us into a trap. Kuros' scales had gone pale. That system shouldn't be active. Caleb looked at him. Interesting choice of words. Kuros touched his communicator. Command, disable corridor defense grid immediately. Static. He tried again. Nothing. Caleb's expression changed. Only slightly. Kuros. What? How many people can activate those guns? The ambassador. Chief Security Officer Drell. Me. Did you activate them? No. Would Drell kill you? Kuros hesitated. Caleb nodded. That's what I thought. What are you implying? The trap wasn't only for us. Kuros stared at him. Caleb looked toward the dead corridor. It was for everyone in this elevator. The station captain's hand slowly moved toward his sidearm. Ambassador Rusk ordered me to escort Miss Venn. And once she died in an unfortunate defense malfunction? Kuros' eyes narrowed. Caleb continued. You become the officer responsible for bringing her here. You die beside her. Rusk blames you. Evidence disappears. Problem solved. Kuros said nothing. The other officers exchanged uncertain looks. Lyra whispered, How do we get around it? Caleb pointed to a maintenance panel. That. Kuros stared. That access tube is 20 centimeters wide. 28. How do you know? Standard Helix-class station. Kuros studied him again. You said you were a hired guard. I am. No hired guard memorizes construction plans for diplomatic stations. Caleb shrugged. I had hobbies. The maintenance route took 14 minutes. Caleb moved through it slowly because of his shoulder. But he never got lost. Not once. When they emerged, they were only 30 meters from Rusk's private meeting hall. Kuros stopped. I'm contacting my command center. Caleb shook his head. If Rusk is cleaning house, your command center is already compromised. I have 70 officers aboard the station. You had 70 officers. Kuros stepped close. Human, you know nothing about my people. Caleb looked directly at him. I know the 2 officers who followed us into the maintenance shaft both disabled their external tracking beacons. I know the officer behind you has been trying to establish an encrypted channel for 6 minutes. And I know you checked the camera over that door twice because you don't trust whoever is watching it. Kuros slowly looked at his own officers. Nobody spoke. Caleb said, You're already thinking like a man whose command has been stolen. Kuros' jaw tightened. What would you do? Caleb looked toward the meeting hall. Finish the job I'm being paid for. The doors opened. Vaylor Rusk was waiting. The alien ambassador was smaller than Lyra expected. Threxians were normally taller than humans, but Rusk was lean and almost delicate. His silver robes covered most of his narrow frame. Only his eyes betrayed him. They were golden. Hungry. Tomas sat beside him. Alive. Lyra nearly ran forward. Tomas. Her brother stood. Lyra thought. A guard struck him in the stomach and forced him back down. Lyra stopped. Rusk smiled. Touching. There were 12 guards in the room. Not station officers. Private soldiers. Heavy armor. Combat implants. Military rifles. One of them stood nearly 2.5 meters tall. His body had been heavily augmented with mechanical limbs. The left side of his skull was covered in polished black metal. Rusk gestured toward Lyra. You brought the key. Yes. And I see you brought protection. His eyes moved to Caleb. Then he laughed softly. Oh. Lyra said nothing. Rusk tilted his head. This is unexpected. You know him? Lyra asked. Caleb's face remained blank. Rusk continued staring. No. Of course not. But the answer came too quickly. Caleb noticed. So did Lyra. Rusk turned away. Captain Kuros, you may leave. Kuros didn't move. Rusk looked back. That was an order. Kuros' voice became cold. Why was the corridor defense system activated? Rusk smiled. A malfunction. It targeted us. A regrettable malfunction. My communications are blocked. Another malfunction. Kuros' hand moved toward his weapon. The giant cyborg guard stepped forward. Rusk raised one finger. Captain. Think very carefully. Kuros froze. Rusk's voice softened. I promoted you. I remember. I paid for your daughter's medical treatment. Kuros' jaw tightened. I remember. I gave your family citizenship. I remember. Then remember your place. Silence. Caleb watched Kuros. Kuros looked at Lyra. Then at Tomas. Then at the 12 private soldiers. Finally, he slowly removed his sidearm. Lyra's heart sank. Kuros placed it on the floor and kicked it toward Caleb. Everyone froze. The pistol slid across the polished surface. It stopped against Caleb's boot. Kuros said, My place is with my officers. Rusk's smile disappeared. Caleb didn't pick up the gun. Instead he looked at Kuros. Get your men out. You'll need help. No. There are 12. I counted. You're unarmed. For now. The cyborg guard laughed. A deep mechanical sound. Rusk raised his hand. Enough. He looked at Lyra. The key. My brother first. No. That was the agreement. The agreement changed. It always does with men like you, Caleb said. Rusk's golden eyes snapped toward him. Did I give you permission to speak? No. Then be silent. No. The word landed strangely in the room. Rusk stared at Caleb. Nobody told Valor Rusk no. Caleb spoke again. Release the boy. Rusk's face tightened. Or. Caleb sighed. Please don't ask me that. The cyborg guard stepped forward. You think you frighten us, old human? Caleb looked at him. No. The giant smiled. Good. I think you're going to make a bad decision. The cyborg crossed the room in 3 massive strides. He reached for Caleb's throat. Caleb moved. Lyra never understood exactly what she saw. One moment Caleb was standing there with his bad shoulder hanging low. The next, his right foot hooked behind the cyborg's ankle. His palm struck the mechanical elbow joint. His body turned. The giant's own momentum carried him forward. There was a violent crack. 280 kilograms of armored soldier hit the floor. Before anyone reacted, Caleb's hand had already reached inside a gap beneath the cyborg's chest plate. His fingers closed around an emergency release lever. He pulled. The giant's powered armor disconnected. Both mechanical legs locked. Caleb stepped back. The cyborg tried to rise. Couldn't. Caleb bent down, removed the giant's pistol, and shot the first guard before the man finished raising his rifle. The meeting hall exploded into chaos. Down! Caleb shouted. Lyra dropped. Kuros tackled Tomas from his chair and dragged him behind the table. 3 guards fired. Caleb was no longer where they aimed. He moved behind the fallen cyborg, used the giant's armored body as cover. 2 energy bolts struck the floor. Caleb fired twice. 2 guards fell. A third charged. Caleb threw the pistol. The weapon struck him directly in the face. As the soldier staggered, Caleb stepped in, seized the rifle barrel, drove it upward, and slammed his forehead into the soldier's exposed jaw. The soldier collapsed. Caleb caught the rifle before it hit the ground. Turned. 3 controlled shots. 3 more guards down. 1 tried to retreat. Caleb fired at the door controls. The door slammed shut. Stay, he said. The guard turned. Caleb shot his weapon out of his hand. The soldier stared. Caleb pointed the rifle toward the floor. Kneel. He knelt. The remaining guards surrendered. The entire fight had lasted perhaps 12 seconds. Lyra slowly lifted her head. Caleb was breathing harder now. His bad shoulder trembled. But his expression was unchanged. Tomas stared at him. Who is that? Lyra whispered, I paid 20 credits for him. Tomas blinked. What? Across the room, Rusk was backing toward a private exit. Caleb aimed the rifle at him. Don't. Rusk stopped. For the first time, fear appeared in his golden eyes. Not confusion. Recognition. Caleb saw it. So, he said quietly, you do know me. Rusk said nothing. Caleb walked closer. Where from? You're mistaken. No. Caleb's voice became colder. You recognized me before the fight. Rusk swallowed. I recognized the movement. Caleb stopped. Every trace of exhaustion vanished from his face. What movement? Rusk seemed to realize he had said too much. Caleb took another step. Rusk whispered, Akron. The room changed. Kuros looked confused. Lyra didn't understand. Tomas didn't understand. But Caleb did. His face became stone. Say it again. Rusk's voice shook. Acheron. Caleb lowered the rifle slightly. Lyra had never seen grief transform a person so quickly. It didn't make him weaker. It made him terrifying. How do you know that name? Rusk said nothing. Caleb grabbed him by the front of his silver robes. How? Rusk flinched. The Dominion archives. What archives? The recovered archives from the war. Caleb pushed him against the wall. That operation was erased. Not entirely. What did you find? Rusk's fear became something else. The thin smile. And Lyra suddenly realized this was no longer about the data key. Rusk whispered, We found your ship. Caleb went completely still. What? The Harrow. Silence. Rusk smiled wider. Or what was left of it. Caleb's grip tightened. Where? Release me. Where? Guarantee my safety. Caleb stared into his eyes. You are currently alive. That is not a guarantee. It's the best offer you're getting. Rusk's smile trembled. Then he said, Vault 9. Caleb released him. Kuros asked, What is Vault 9? Rusk laughed nervously. My insurance. Caleb turned toward Lyra. Contract changed. Her heart pounded. What do you mean? I'm getting your brother off this station. And the evidence? Keep it. You said. I know what I said. Something in his voice stopped her. Caleb looked at Kuros. Can you reach loyal officers? Possibly. Get civilians off Ring 3. Kuros frowned. Why? Because Vault 9 is on Ring 3. How could you know that? Because this station wasn't originally diplomatic. Kuros stared. Caleb continued. It was a military intelligence hub. Rusk's face went pale. Caleb looked at him. And if someone rebuilt Vault 9, they didn't do it to store money. Rusk suddenly lunged for the wall console. Caleb fired. The shot struck the panel an instant before Rusk touched it. Rusk recoiled. Caleb pointed the rifle directly at him. What's inside? Rusk said nothing. Caleb stepped closer. What is inside Vault 9? Rusk whispered, History. A warning siren screamed through the station. Red lights flashed. An automated voice echoed from the ceiling. Security lockdown initiated. Kuros cursed. Rusk began laughing. You should have killed me when you had the chance. Caleb looked upward. What did you activate? Nothing. Then who did? Rusk's laughter stopped. For the first time, he looked genuinely confused. The lights went out. Emergency red illumination replaced them. Then every screen in the room turned on. Static. A symbol appeared. A black circle. Split by a white vertical line. Caleb stared at it. Lyra looked at him. His face had lost all color. A distorted voice emerged from the speakers. Commander. Caleb's rifle lowered. The voice continued. It has been 19 years. Lyra whispered, Caleb? He didn't answer. The distorted voice said, We wondered how long you would keep pretending to be dead. Caleb finally spoke. You should have stayed buried. Interesting. We were about to tell you the same thing. The screens went black. Then gunfire erupted somewhere outside. Kuros activated his communicator. This time it worked. Sarin, report. A panicked voice answered. Captain, unknown hostiles just breached rings 2 and 3. They're wearing station security codes, but they're not ours. How many? Hundreds. Kuros looked at Caleb. What is happening? Caleb stared toward the sealed doors. A cleanup. Whose? Mine. Lyra stepped toward him. What are you talking about? Caleb looked at her. You hired the wrong man. You saved us. And now everyone on this station is in danger because I'm here. You didn't bring them. Yes, I did. Another explosion shook the room. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Caleb picked up Kuros' discarded pistol and handed it back to him. Take Lyra and Tomas to Dock 12. What about you? I'm going to Ring 3. Lyra grabbed his sleeve. No. Caleb looked at her hand. She didn't release him. I hired you. The contract is over. No, it isn't. Lyra. You said 24 hours. This isn't your fight. They kidnapped my brother. They're attacking the station. They're trying to kill you. It became my fight 10 minutes ago. Caleb stared at her. Lyra's voice shook. But I need to know who you are. Caleb looked away. Rusk answered for him. He was the reason the Dominion surrendered. Everyone turned. Rusk was smiling again. Not because he felt safe. Because he enjoyed knowing something they didn't. He wasn't a general, Rusk continued. Not officially. He wasn't even supposed to exist. Caleb said, Stop. Rusk ignored him. During the last years of the Human-Dominion War, entire fleets began disappearing. Rusk. Command ships vanished inside defended systems. Admirals died in sealed bunkers. Weapon platforms shut down without warning. Enough. And every survivor told the same story. Rusk looked directly at Lyra. A human ship with no transponder. Caleb raised the rifle. Rusk smiled at him. A black ship called Harrow. Lyra stared at Caleb. Rusk continued. Commander Caleb Voss. Leader of Task Group Acheron. Tomas whispered, That's impossible. Kuros' eyes widened. Even Lyra knew the name Acheron. Everyone did. Children learned about it in school. But Acheron wasn't a person. It was a legend. A story from the war. The Ghost Fleet. The human unit that had supposedly crossed 14 enemy systems without support and destroyed the Dominion's strategic command network from the inside. Official histories called it wartime propaganda. Conspiracy forums claimed Acheron had been real. Nobody had ever proven it. Rusk looked at Caleb. The Butcher of Vera. Caleb's rifle rose instantly. Do not call me that. Rusk smiled. So it is true. Caleb walked toward him. Lyra stepped between them. Caleb. He stopped. Don't. For several seconds, he looked at Rusk over her shoulder. Then lowered the weapon. We don't have time. Kuros asked quietly, What happened at Vera? Caleb's face hardened. Later. Rusk laughed. He killed 11,000 Dominion soldiers in 6 hours. Caleb turned. They were preparing to sterilize 3 human colonies. You detonated their orbital shipyard while it was occupied. They had 12 antimatter warheads pointed at civilians. You killed everyone aboard. I know. Rusk's smile faded. Caleb's voice had changed. There was no pride in it. No triumph. Only memory. I know exactly how many. Nobody spoke. Caleb looked toward the door. They called me a legend because legends are cleaner than the truth. Another explosion shook the station. He loaded the rifle. The truth is I was very good at doing terrible things before terrible people could do worse. Then he looked at Lyra. And someone just opened the grave I spent 19 years trying to close. The doors blew inward. Caleb fired before the smoke cleared. 2 black-armored figures fell. 3 more entered. Their armor bore the split circle symbol. Caleb froze for half a heartbeat. One attacker shouted, Acheron 1 confirmed. Caleb shot him. Move! They ran. Kuros led Tomas and Lyra through the rear service corridor. Caleb followed, firing controlled bursts behind them. Rusk stumbled along in the middle, suddenly very interested in surviving. They reached a junction. 20 station civilians were trapped behind a security barrier. Black armored troops were approaching from the opposite corridor. Kuros shouted, We can't reach them. Caleb looked around. One glance. That was all. He shot an overhead coolant pipe. White vapor exploded into the corridor. The enemy's targeting lasers vanished inside the fog. Caleb ran directly into it. Lyra saw flashes. Heard gunshots. A scream. Then silence. Caleb emerged from the fog carrying an enemy rifle. Barrier controls are on the left. Kuros unlocked the civilians. Get to evacuation decks. A woman pointed at Caleb's bleeding side. You're hurt. He looked down. A plasma burn had cut through his coat. Had worse. Lyra said, you need medical treatment. Later. You keep saying later. I'm optimistic. They reached an emergency elevator. Caleb entered a code. The elevator accepted it. Kuros stared. That code is older than I am. Exactly. The elevator descended. Ring 3. Vault 9. The doors opened onto darkness. Caleb stepped out. Lyra followed. Stay in the elevator. No. Lyra. No. Tomas caught her arm. Maybe listen to the terrifying war legend. She looked at him. You stay here. What? You're the reason I came. That feels insulting. It's supposed to. Caleb almost smiled. Almost. Then a sound echoed through the dark corridor. A metallic knock. 3 times. Caleb stopped. His hand tightened around the rifle. 3 knocks answered from farther inside. Then 2. Then 3 again. Caleb whispered, no. Lyra heard something in his voice she hadn't heard all day. What is it? He walked faster. They reached Vault 9. The blast door was already open. Inside stood a spacecraft. But angular. Its hull was scarred almost beyond recognition. 1 engine was missing. Half its nose had been torn open and rebuilt. But beneath the damage, a faded marking remained. Harrow. Lyra stared. The ship. Caleb didn't move. For 19 years, he had believed Harrow was gone. He had watched it fall into the atmosphere of Asturion while enemy cruisers fired on it. He had watched his crew die. He had spent years waking from dreams in which their voices still called to him. And now the ship was sitting 20 meters away. Waiting. Rusk whispered, we found it 6 years ago. Caleb turned. Where? Buried under the ice of Asturion's southern continent. Bodies. Rusk hesitated. Caleb stepped toward him. Bodies? None. The old man stopped breathing. What did you say? No bodies. Caleb looked at Harrow. The cockpit lights suddenly came on. One by one. A voice emerged from the ship. So familiar. Commander Voss. Caleb dropped the rifle. Lyra stared at him. His hands were shaking. The ship spoke again. You are late. Caleb walked forward like a man approaching a ghost. Harrow. Identity confirmed. The cockpit opened. Caleb stopped at the ramp. Harrow. Welcome back, Commander. He touched the hull. For the first time since Lyra met him, Caleb Voss looked old. Not physically. Emotionally. Like 19 years had suddenly fallen on him all at once. I thought you were destroyed. Incorrect. Where is the crew? Silence. Caleb closed his eyes. Then Harrow answered. 3 survived atmospheric descent. His eyes opened. Who? Before the ship could answer, the vault doors slammed shut. Rusk smiled. Caleb spun. Rusk had moved beside a hidden terminal. I'm sorry, he said. No, you're not, Lyra replied. Rusk pressed his palm against the panel. Energy shields activated around the ship. Caleb rushed toward him. Too late. Harrow was sealed behind a containment field. Rusk stepped backward. You think I bought this station because of trade? Caleb stared at him. Rusk laughed. I bought it because Harrow was here. Lyra's blood ran cold. You knew. Of course I knew. You wanted Caleb to come. Rusk looked delighted. Finally. Caleb's eyes narrowed. The kidnapping. The lure. The evidence. Real enough. I do sell crews. Profit is profit. Tomas stared at him in disgust. You're insane. No. I am ambitious. Rusk gestured toward Harrow. That ship contains military technologies 40 years ahead of anything currently deployed. Caleb said, you couldn't unlock it. No. So you needed me. For 6 years. Rusk smiled. Do you know how difficult it is to find a man who has spent 2 decades becoming nobody? Caleb's voice became very quiet. You threatened the wrong woman. Yes. That was your mistake. No, Commander. Rusk looked toward the vault doors. That was the plan. The split circle symbol appeared on every wall screen. Caleb looked at it. Rusk bowed slightly. I wasn't working alone. The distorted voice returned. Hello, Caleb. A figure appeared on the main display. Human. Older than Caleb. One eye replaced by a black cybernetic lens. Caleb stared. For the first time, shock completely broke through his control. Admiral Soren. Lyra looked between them. You know him? Caleb whispered. He was my commanding officer. Soren smiled from the screen. Was. Caleb stepped closer. You died. Officially. Why? Because after the war, humanity became weak. Caleb's jaw tightened. Soren continued. We defeated the Dominion and then apologized for winning. We dismantled the weapons that protected us. We signed treaties. We allowed bureaucrats to decide that monsters like you and me were embarrassing relics. You murdered Acheron. I preserved it. You ordered us into Asterion knowing the fleet was waiting. Soren said nothing. Caleb understood. His face changed. You gave them our position. Lyra looked at Soren. You betrayed your own soldiers? Soren ignored her. Caleb's voice cracked. There were 43 people on Harrow. Necessary casualties. Caleb stared at the screen. 19 years of guilt. 19 years believing he had failed them. 19 years believing he had made the wrong decision. No. You sold us. I sacrificed you. For what? To keep Harrow hidden. Caleb looked toward the trapped ship. Soren smiled. The prototype intelligence aboard that vessel was capable of controlling every autonomous defense network in human space. After the war, politicians planned to destroy it. Harrow was never a weapon. Everything is a weapon. No. She coordinated rescue operations. She coordinated fleets. She protected civilians. She could control fleets. Caleb looked at the ship. Harrow's voice said softly, Commander. Caleb understood the warning. Turned. Rusk was reaching for a pistol. Lyra moved first. She grabbed the same thermos Caleb had carried all day and smashed it across Rusk's face. The ambassador collapsed. Tomas shouted, That was amazing. Lyra stared at the dented thermos. I have been wanting to do that for hours. Caleb picked up Rusk's pistol. Soren's face remained on the screen. You cannot stop this. Caleb looked at him. You trained me. I created you. That's why you should know better. The station shook violently. Soren's troops were breaching the vault. Kuros shouted over his communicator. Commander, I have perhaps 4 minutes before they cut through. Caleb looked at Harrow. Can you lower the containment field? Negative. Can you access station systems? Limited. Can you open maintenance network Delta 7? Processing. Rusk groaned from the floor. Lyra kicked the pistol away from him. Caleb glanced at her. You're getting good at this. 20 credits well spent. Absolutely. Harrow spoke. Delta 7 accessible. Caleb smiled. Soren saw it. His expression changed. What are you doing? Caleb looked at the screen. Something you taught me. He fired into the coolant regulator. Alarm screamed. Rusk's eyes widened. No! Tomas shouted. What did you do? Caleb grabbed Lyra. Run! They sprinted toward the side passage. Rusk scrambled after them. Do you understand what happens if the vault reactor overheats? Caleb glanced back. Yes. It will destroy Ring 3. Correct. My station. Life is full of disappointments. They reached the maintenance shaft. Behind them, Soren shouted through the speakers. You wouldn't destroy Harrow. Caleb stopped. Looked back at the ship. Harrow. Yes, Commander? Protocol 7. The pause. Then the AI answered. Understood. The ship's damaged engines suddenly activated. The containment field flickered. Rusk stared. That's impossible. Caleb smiled. Harrow has always been difficult. The ship fired its maneuvering thrusters. Twice. The containment generators strained. Then the old human vessel rotated sideways and drove its reinforced hull directly into the field emitter. The generator exploded. The containment field vanished. Harrow rose. A section of the vault ceiling opened. Soren screamed, "Stop that ship!" Too late. Harrow accelerated upward through the emergency launch shaft. Black armored troops breached the vault just as it vanished. Caleb shoved Lyra into the maintenance tube. "Go!" They climbed. Gunfire tore into the walls behind them. Kuros held the rear. Tomas pulled Lyra forward. Caleb stayed behind them. One bullet struck his leg. He fell. Lyra turned. "Caleb! Keep moving!" 2 enemy soldiers entered the shaft. Caleb fired. One fell. The second returned fire. Caleb's weapon clicked empty. The soldier aimed. Then a rifle shot came from above. The soldier collapsed. Kuros stared at his smoking weapon. Caleb looked up at him. "Nice shot." Kuros grabbed Caleb's arm. 20 years as station security. You should ask for a raise. Together they climbed. They emerged onto Ring 2. The station was chaos. Civilians filled the corridors. Fires burned behind emergency shutters. Soren's troops controlled the central docking spine. Kuros looked at Caleb. "We cannot reach Dock 12. Caleb leaned against the wall. His leg was bleeding badly. Lyra knelt beside him. "You're done." "No. You've been shot." "Technically, I've been shot many times." "That isn't comforting." "I told you. I'm not good at comforting." Tomas looked through the observation window. Outside, dozens of unidentified warships surrounded the station. Soren brought a fleet. Caleb glanced outside. "No." "What?" "That isn't Soren's fleet." Everyone looked. The ships were moving into attack formation. But not against the station. Against Soren's vessels. A transmission flooded every channel. "This is Sol Compact Battle Group 7. Unknown combatants, power down weapons immediately." Then another. "Commander Caleb Voss, if you can hear this, please respond." Caleb frowned. Lyra stared at him. "You called them?" "No." A third transmission arrived. Then a fourth. Then dozens. Civilian ships. Military ships. Old warships. Private vessels. They were dropping out of hyperspace all around the station. One message repeated across every channel. Acheron's signal confirmed. Caleb stared. Harrow's voice came through the station speakers. "I transmitted your return." Caleb closed his eyes. "Harrow, you instructed me to preserve civilian lives. This is not what I meant." "I interpreted broadly." Lyra smiled despite everything. "I like her." So did everyone. More ships appeared. Some carried human markings. Others didn't. Threxian. Varen. Species that had once fought against humanity. Caleb stared in disbelief. An ancient Dominion cruiser emerged from hyperspace. Its captain appeared on the screen. A scarred alien with one artificial eye. "Commander Voss." Caleb stiffened. The alien saluted. "My grandfather was on Vera." Everyone went silent. Caleb's expression darkened. The captain continued. "He commanded the Dominion Medical Transport Dawn of Mercy." Caleb remembered. During the battle, the ship had been trapped between 2 weapons platforms. Caleb had diverted Harrow under enemy fire to pull it clear. The transport had carried 3,000 wounded. The alien captain said, "You saved him." Caleb stared. "My family remembers." Another transmission arrived. A human woman. "My colony was one of the 3 you protected at Vera." Another. "My father served aboard the battleship Perseus. Acheron rescued them at Deneb." Another. "My mother was a prisoner on Karth." Another. "You got us home." Caleb looked around at the screens. Hundreds of messages. Hundreds of ships. Not because they feared him. Not because of the enemies he had killed. Because of the people he had saved. For 19 years, Caleb had remembered only the dead. Apparently, the living had remembered him. Lyra watched his eyes fill with tears. He quickly looked away. She said nothing. Soren's voice suddenly broke across the channel. "Pathetic." His flagship emerged beyond the station. A massive dreadnought. Black hole. Hundreds of weapons. Soren appeared on every screen. You see, Caleb? This is exactly why humanity became weak. Sentiment. Gratitude. Mercy. Caleb looked at the flagship. Soren continued. You could have ruled systems. I didn't want to. You could have commanded the greatest fleet in history. I wanted to go home. You were made for war. Caleb's face became calm again. No. Soren smiled. No. I was made by 2 farmers in Montana. Lyra stared at him. Caleb continued. You trained me for war. He picked up a fallen rifle. But you never understood the difference. Soren's dreadnought powered its weapons. Harrow spoke. Commander, enemy vessel preparing station kill strike. Kuros looked horrified. He'll destroy everyone. Caleb stared through the observation window. No. What? He wants Harrow. Tomas said. Then why charge the weapon? Because he thinks Harrow will intervene. Lyra understood. He's forcing her to reveal her capabilities. Caleb nodded. Harrow. Yes. Do not engage. Station casualties projected at 31,000. I know. Commander. Trust me. 3 seconds. Soren's weapon reached full charge. Caleb said, now broadcast his targeting telemetry to every ship. Harrow obeyed. Suddenly every vessel surrounding the station received proof that Soren was preparing to fire on civilians. The response was immediate. Hundreds of targeting systems locked onto Soren's dreadnought. Human. Threxian. Varen. Civilian. Military. Former enemy. Former ally. All of them. One fleet commander transmitted a single sentence. Power down or disappear. Soren stared from the screen. Caleb smiled. You wanted the greatest fleet in history. He gestured toward the window. There it is. Soren's face twisted. They follow you. No. Caleb shook his head. They chose. Soren screamed, fire. The dreadnought's weapon activated. And died. Harrow spoke. Enemy firing sequence disabled. Caleb blinked. I told you not to engage. I did not. What did you do? I sent the dreadnought's maintenance AI a software update. Lyra burst out laughing. Even Kuros smiled. Caleb shook his head. You haven't changed. Neither have you. Soren's fleet began surrendering. His own officers turned against him once they realized he had ordered the destruction of a civilian station. 20 minutes later, Sol Compact Marines boarded the dreadnought. Admiral Soren was arrested. Valer Rusk tried to escape through a waste recycling duct. Tomas personally helped pull him back out. By morning, the station was under joint military protection. By afternoon, Lyra's evidence had spread across 27 systems. Rusk's trafficking network collapsed within hours. Governments froze his accounts. Police liberated 4 debt colonies. 312 missing civilians were found alive. Tomas slept for 14 straight hours. Kuros was offered temporary command of the station. And Caleb Voss disappeared. Lyra found him at Dock 17. He was standing beside a small passenger shuttle. His old coat had been patched. His shoulder was bandaged. His leg was wrapped. He had somehow found another thermos. You're leaving, she said. Yes. You could have said goodbye. I'm bad at goodbyes. I noticed. Caleb looked toward the stars. Harrow floated outside the station, surrounded by repair craft. Lyra walked beside him. You're not going with her? Eventually. Where are you going now? Mercenary exchange. Lyra stared. You cannot be serious. I left my bag there. You just stopped a conspiracy that lasted 20 years. My socks are in that bag. You have an entire fleet waiting to talk to you. Which is exactly why I need the socks. Lyra laughed. Then she became serious. I checked your contract. Caleb sighed. That sounds dangerous. You didn't finish 24 hours. Technically I did. No. You signed at 1400 yesterday. It's 1338. Caleb checked the time. 22 minutes. You still work for me. That is deeply unfortunate. I have one final assignment. He eyed her suspiciously. What? She held something out. A credit chip. Caleb looked at it. I already got paid. No. She placed it in his hand. Your original rate was 20 credits. Yes. You worked 1 day. Yes. So 20 credits. Caleb looked at the chip. Then back at her. That's it. That's it. No bonus. No. Good. No palace. No. Planet. No. Excellent. Lyra smiled. But I did add 3 credits. Caleb frowned. Why? That was everything I had left. You need it. So do you. For what? She pointed at his crushed thermos. You need a new one. Caleb looked down. The side was deeply dented from where she had smashed Rusk with it. That was a good thermos. It died heroically. It was 8 years old. Then it had a full life. Caleb almost smiled. Then Lyra asked the question she had been holding back. Why did you take my contract? He looked at her. You were the cheapest guard on the list. You could have refused. Yes. You knew Rusk's name. Yes. You knew something was wrong before we ever left. Yes. Then why come? Caleb looked out through the docking window. For a while he said nothing. Then he reached into his pocket. He removed a small, folded photograph. Physical paper. 43 people stood in front of a black spacecraft. Harrow. His crew. A younger Caleb stood in the center. Smiling. Lyra had never seen him smile like that. Caleb pointed to a woman near the edge. That was Lieutenant Lyra Venn. Lyra stopped breathing. What? Your aunt? My father's sister? Yes. She died in the war. Yes. My family never knew where. Asterion. Lyra stared at the photograph. Caleb continued. She was my chief engineer. My father said she worked logistics. She lied. Apparently. She saved my life 3 times. Lyra looked at him. Did she survive the crash? Caleb's expression became unreadable. I don't know. Harrow said 3 people survived. Yes. You didn't ask who. I was afraid. The legendary commander. The Reaper. The ghost of Acheron. The man entire fleets remembered. Afraid. Lyra finally understood. Not afraid of armies. Not afraid of death. Afraid of hope. Caleb looked toward Harrow. I spent 19 years learning how to live with ghosts. Lyra gently handed the photograph back. Maybe it's time to find out whether all of them are ghosts. Caleb stared at her. Behind them, Harrow's voice emerged from the docking terminal. Commander. Caleb closed his eyes. You are developing a habit of listening to private conversations. I have always possessed that habit. Lyra smiled. Caleb asked, who survived? Harrow paused. Then answered, Lieutenant Lyra Venn. Lyra covered her mouth. Caleb stopped moving. Alive. As of my last verified contact, 11 months ago. Where? Classified. Caleb looked offended. Harrow. I am protecting her privacy. She's my officer. She retired. Where is she? Authorization required. Whose authorization? Lyra Venn's. Caleb stared at the terminal. Lyra started laughing. What? You defeated an army this morning. Yes. You faced an admiral who betrayed you. Yes. You stopped a dreadnought. Yes. And now your own ship won't tell you where my aunt lives. Caleb sighed. Harrow was always the most dangerous member of Acheron. Statement accepted, Harrow replied. The shuttle doors opened. Caleb looked at the 23-credit chip in his hand. Then at Lyra. You know something? What? Yesterday, everyone at that exchange thought you were an idiot. They might still be right. No. He closed his hand around the chip. You bought the cheapest guard in the galaxy. Lyra smiled. And? Caleb stepped onto the shuttle. And you still overpaid. The doors began closing. Caleb. He looked back. Lyra raised her voice. If Mara agrees to see you, take me with you. He hesitated, then nodded. No promises. I'll hire you again. You can't afford me. I thought you cost 20 credits. That was before I became famous. You were already famous. Then I was undercharging. The doors closed. The shuttle lifted away. Lyra stood beside the observation window and watched it disappear among the hundreds of vessels surrounding the station. News of what happened spread faster than any of them expected. By the end of the week, every major network in known space knew the name Caleb Voss. Governments publicly denied ever having classified his existence. Retired soldiers began telling stories they had kept secret for decades. Former Dominion officers admitted that entire campaigns had been built around one question. Where is Acheron? But the stories that spread most weren't about destroyed fleets. They weren't about Vera. They weren't about the generals Caleb had defeated or the wars he had ended. They were smaller stories. A medical ship pulled from enemy fire. A convoy of children guided through a minefield. A soldier carried 30 kilometers through frozen wilderness. A civilian colony saved because one human commander refused an order to retreat. The galaxy had remembered Caleb Voss as a weapon. The people he saved remembered something different. A guardian. Months later, an old human man stepped from a shuttle onto a quiet agricultural moon. He wore a repaired coat. He carried a new thermos. And he walked with a limp. Lyra walked beside him. So this is the place? Yes, Harrow answered through Caleb's wrist communicator. House ahead. Caleb stopped. A small farmhouse stood beyond a field of blue grain. Someone was sitting on the porch. An elderly woman. Gray hair. Mechanical right leg. Coffee cup in her hand. Caleb didn't breathe. The woman looked up. Her coffee cup slipped from her fingers. For 19 years, Caleb Voss had faced nightmares without flinching. He had walked into rooms filled with armed killers. He had challenged fleets. He had survived betrayals, war, torture, and the slow destruction of almost everything he loved. But now he couldn't take one more step. The woman stood. Her voice crossed the field. You took your damn time, Commander. Caleb laughed, then cried. And for the first time in 19 years, the legendary ghost of Acheron did not feel like a weapon. He did not feel like a commander. He did not feel like a dead man who had simply forgotten to stop breathing. He felt human. Lyra stayed behind as Caleb crossed the field. Slowly, limping, Mara met him halfway. Neither said anything. They simply held each other. Two survivors of a war the galaxy had turned into mythology. Two people who finally understood that surviving was not the same as living. And somewhere above them, hidden among the stars, Harrow watched silently. Because legends were never really about the battles people won. They were about what remained after the fighting stopped. Empires remembered Caleb Voss because they feared him. Soldiers remembered him because they followed him. Enemies remembered him because they could never predict him. But the people who truly knew him remembered something far simpler. When everyone else ran away, Caleb stayed. When everyone else surrendered, Caleb stood. And when a frightened young woman with 23 credits needed someone between her family and a monster, the cheapest human guard in the galaxy quietly took the job. Not because she could afford him. Not because he needed the money. But because after 19 years of hiding from the man he used to be, Caleb Voss finally discovered one truth he had forgotten. A weapon exists to destroy. A legend exists to be remembered. But a human being chooses what he stands for. And Caleb had finally chosen. He would stand for the people who couldn't stand alone. Even if the entire galaxy stood against him.